you're anything like me, when it's time to craft, you want to really be able to just focus on crafting. You don't want to stop and do lots of little administrative tasks or things like that. And so today I want to share with you some of my best tips for what you can do to make sure that your crafting experience is smooth. These things, they're little quick tasks that will transform your crafting experience. So they're in no particular order, just kind of as they came to me, but I think they will all be helpful to most paper crafters. The first thing on my list is when you get a set of dies is to cut them apart. Now, not all dies come this way. There's plenty of dies that already come cut apart, or like they're not even cut apart. They were never attached. But there's plenty of die sets that do come with these little metal pieces that connect them, and you need to cut them apart. You can like fold them back and forth, or you can get special die cut snips. But this is a die set that I've actually owned for a while, and because I didn't do this, I haven't touched it yet. And I think I'm much more likely to use it once it's actually ready to go. Because if I go in my collection and I see this die set, I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, and I move on. Task is filing any new products into your organization system. This will only take a few minutes, especially if you haven't let it build up over time. You just take that minute before you get crafting, or when you're just like, I only have 5 minutes, it's not enough time to make something. You can take your new stamp sets, and whether it's something like you put them in stamp pockets, I put mine in zip top bags. I put the dies on magnet sheets in the back, and I have a whole video about my system. But by just getting them ready, kind of like when you cut apart the dies, making sure that when I go to find this new stamp set, it's filed away with all my other Lawn Fawn animal stamp sets, and I'm not wondering which of these piles is it in. And speaking of piles, take that 2 minutes and put away that pile of things on your desk, especially if you're done working with it. I am so guilty of this, leaving piles and piles of paper or stamps and a combination thereof, like, oh, I use this stamp set and this and this and this all together. And then I just leave it in a pile when I'm done because I don't always have that time to clean up. But getting those piles out of the way before my next crafting session means that I'm not balancing even more things on top of that pile. To prevent snags when you're working, it's also helpful to make sure that none of your products are dried out. So you don't do this every day for certainly, but maybe once or twice a year, go through and take any of your products like ink refills or glues and all of that, and just go through, and any that you haven't touched in a while, make sure they actually still work, so that when you're reaching for them during a project, you know they will. And then if you do reach for them during a project and you find out that they aren't working, having a designated area to be like, okay, these are the things that I need to clean out and see if I can fix, or that I need to get rid of, can be quite helpful, so that you know what to do with them. And the next time you go to pull it out, it's not a problem. It's important to do on the regular, and that is cleaning up your products, like your tools, your stamp platform, your blending brushes. I am so bad with this. I have a video where like I take a deep dive in how to really clean these, because I am so guilty of just putting them back in the drawer when I'm done using them. And then whatever like buildups on there, if I've used a darker color, it can be problematic. But I'm thinking like your acrylic blocks, your mats, those like stencil mats, things like that. If they're clean and ready to go, then when you are ready for your next project, you're not worrying about transferring ink. I have these cloths that I purchased on Amazon, and you can get them wet, and you can like kind of use them similar to a baby wipe, but they're not disposable. Hand wash them with soap and then reuse them over and over again. But eventually they do kind of deteriorate, and then you could pass them along. But they're a lot more inexpensive than those like dedicated stamp chamois, which I've had in the past and I have no complaints about. But just in terms of like, I find it helpful to have like a pack of these. Tip is to start an idea binder. I actually have several of these. If you've watched my channel before, one of the things I like to do is make paper busting templates. And that shows you how to cut a piece of patterned paper, whether it be 6x6, 12x12, 6x8, 8x8, all kinds of sizes, and then use that patterned paper, those pieces that you've cut apart, and turn them into cards without any patterned paper scraps. So I keep all of those templates here in a binder. I have 50 ideas for turning 6x6 pattern paper into A2 size cards. I have 40 ideas for turning 12 by 12 paper into A2 size cards. And then there's so many more. Like I have ideas for 5 by 7, etc. But having them all in a binder means that I can just go, okay, I have 6 by 6 pattern paper I want to use. I know I want to make A2 cards. Let me flip through and see which design I like. Now, you might not be into pattern paper the way that I am, and you might not be interested in these templates. They are free to download, though, so I will leave you a link in the video description. You can start, pick up one and try it if you haven't yet. But you might instead just have like other ideas that you've collected over time, other people's sketches, that kind of thing, and getting them into a place where you can actually flip through it. Now, some of you though are like, I prefer digital. Maybe you can create a document or something like that that you could go to where you've linked a YouTube video that uses your new stamp set. So you can organize it by which stamp set. You can create an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet or something like that that allows you to go ahead and find your idea. So whether it's a physical binder or a spreadsheet or something, I think it's important to keep those ideas in some way that they're like easily accessible, they're organized. Mine are categorized by the paper type. Yours should be categorized by something, so that way you're not just like scrolling endlessly through Pinterest or watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and instead you can get right to crafting if that's what you want to do. Of course, I'm never going to discourage anybody from checking out a YouTube video to get some inspiration. Of course, that's what I do. Or, head over to my Pinterest and take a look at things. But I just want to present that as a way to help kind of streamline your process. These may be tips you've already heard before, but I wanted to gather them all in one place so you can kind of go down the list as like a little bit of a check off and make sure you've actually incorporated all these ideas into your craft room. So I have a trash bin. And that doesn't sound very revolutionary, but sometimes we forget that like having a dedicated trash bin in a room, especially a craft room, can be really helpful to making sure that things stay clean. So I actually have these baskets. They are like file holder baskets. They are meant to hold like magazines. And I had a narrow space between the drawers of my desk, and I couldn't fit a traditional trash can. And they're not very cute. But these baskets are really pretty. They match some other baskets in my room, and they still hold recycling and garbage just fine. In fact, they're actually really great for recycling because they are 8.5, like they're meant to hold things that are 8.5 by 11. So they're pretty long, and I can get what I need into them. And speaking of other bins that are helpful to have, so on top of having trash cans and maybe a recycling can too, for me, recycling is really easy, so I have both. But you might also want a donation bin. So find somewhere in your room where you can put things that you think are no longer a good fit for you. I gotta admit, mine is actually not in my craft room. It's in a hall closet because I just kind of ran out of room in here, but I can still easily open my door, walk down the hall, put it in the basket, and come back so that when I encounter something as I'm crafting and I think that I'm no longer gonna use it, I keep kind of stumbling over it, it feels more in the way, or if I have like a dedicated de-stash clear out session, I can put it in there. And then I can decide, do I want to donate this to a local school? Do I want to drop it off at my local arts and crafts thrift store? If you've never heard of an arts and crafts thrift store, I have a whole list over on my blog, and I will link it in the video description, where you can either donate your old craft supplies or you can go give a new home to some other people's previously used or loved craft supplies. It is for the United States and Canada, arts and crafts thrift stores. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. Very common suggestion and really important to card makers, in my opinion, is to pre-cut your card bases. So I have this cube that fits in a little cube organizer right on top of my work surface, and I've pre-cut some A2 card bases, some A2 card fronts. I keep envelopes in here, 5 by 7 cards, a lot of stuff that is just like pre-made, ready to go, so that when I need it, I can just open this drawer, grab it out, and get right to work. Have your card stock and card bases ready to go, easily accessible. Think about your other most used products and make sure they are in an easily accessible place. For instance, you might want a spinner for the top of your desk that can hold pens, markers, glue, scissors, whatever it is that you personally reach for on a regular basis, like those pickup sticks fit well in these. I have a craft scraper in mine. They have those little tweezers for holding down your embossing, all kinds of fun stuff that like you just want to be able to grab and go. And it makes putting it away really, really easy too. A couple other things that I personally find helpful just to kind of like help you to think about what you would want to be having most accessible. I also think top drawers are great for this. Like I keep my stamp platform in the top drawer so that way it's like the easiest drawer to, I don't have to crouch down because I have a standing desk. So I also keep my mint tape on a tape roll or a tape dispenser from scrapbook.com. So it's the scrapbook.com mint tape. And then this is like right on the little shelves on my desk so that I can just grab a piece whenever. I used to keep it in the top drawer, so it was still easily accessible, but this is even easier. Was gifted a glue lounger and an ATG, a Scotch Advanced Tape Glider holder from Make It by Marco a number of years ago. I find this helpful because it sits on top of my desk, and then I can just put my adhesive back in it, and then when I'm ready to go, just grab it out. And I don't even have to open anything because this is another one that used to be in the top drawer. Also, some people just kind of place it down like this on their desk, and that makes it easy to use. Got some systems in place, like you've established a trash can or a place to put things that you want to donate, just doing that clean sweep. And while you're doing that clean sweep and you're putting, making sure the trash gets where it needs to go, or now that you have a recycling bin, you don't feel like you have to pile it up and save it for when you're going to go down to where you actually put your recycling in your house, for instance. Um, then I would suggest also like during that process, thinking about what kind of cleaning products do I wish I had on hand? Like, do you wish you had a roll of paper towels in your craft room? Do you wish you had a container of baby wipes because, you want to wipe up those messes, or once your table was cleared off, you realized, there was some kind of mess you needed to clean up. So, I don't use baby wipes a ton, but I do now have some in my craft room. In the past, I stopped using them for a while. I didn't have them in my craft room, but and I use, like I mentioned before, these reusable dishcloths for a lot of things. But there's sometimes where like it's a paint mess or something like that, that really would be better if it was just, thrown out the towel in the end. And you can, of course, just use the paper towels, maybe a little like spritz bottle with water or something like that to go with the paper towels. And then that way you don't have to have two things. I have a lint roller because I have a cat. And so mostly for that. But you can also like pick up die cuts, glitter, little bits like that. Um, so sorry, there's cat hair on there, guys. It's everywhere. You can't. I cleaned. I made sure it was a clean sheet. I pulled off the old sheet. Didn't do enough. But we are going to need to clean our craft room. I hate to say it. I wish there was a magical fairy who would come and clean my craft room. If you also need a magic fairy to come every night and just like tidy up, put all the things, you made the system for her, she just needs to put it away, then leave me a little fairy emoji in the video description. Also, feel free to leave any of your best tips that you think really help to streamline your process. Another thing that's important to consider is your comfort. So, looking at things that make your craft room more comfortable when you're sitting in your chair. Is it a comfortable chair? Like if you craft sitting down, I craft standing up because that's more comfortable for me, but like also even just trying that, like trying it out. Which one do you like better? Is the chair that you're working with comfortable? Do you have enough lighting? That can be a hard one because sometimes people are like crafting in their basement or the spare room and they don't maybe have like the quote unquote nicest room of the house. But making sure that it's not just one tiny desk lamp that's causing you to strain your eyes, but you can really see what you're doing. You're physically comfortable. And this is not quite the same thing, but like a snack, a water bottle, things like that, especially if you're crafting for a long time, being able to just get a little chocolate or a little candy out of the drawer can be fun too. But yeah, like just making sure you take a little check, look around, and is the environment even just physically comfortable? My last tip, and I hope that you have found this video helpful so far. If you have, you would take a moment to click that subscribe button, that like button. Let me know you found this helpful. I would really appreciate that. But my last tip, and this one actually means you get to get crafty. So I saved it for last so that you can, have something to really look forward to, is to make a scrap busting project. So I suggest going to that scrap pile because I know a lot of us paper crafters in particular have scrap piles, and it's one of those things that can be a little bit difficult, take up a little bit of room in our craft space. and see if you can make some stuff with those scraps, because maybe you realize actually teeny tiny scraps aren't very useful. So here's a bunch of projects I've made recently. Uh, these are usually with my paper busting templates, and so that means that you can follow a specific template for them. Like this one just uses, oh, sorry, wrong one. This one uses 1 inch squares. So this is a great scrap busting project. It's 8 by 8 template number 10. I'll remember to link it in the video description, but this will help you to, go, okay, like, do I like using little tiny 1 inch pieces of paper? Is that something I really want to keep going forward? Because if it is, great, please, like, go make a bunch of these cards and that'll feel good. But if you also go like, hey, those are kind of too small for me, now you know, and you can go through and help yourself to eliminate what scraps aren't actually helpful to you. Scrap busting projects, die cutting is great for that. So this is one where I was just die cutting A2 sized paper, which is a kind of would be kind of big for a scrap, but it does happen for sure. And this one, another, just kind of like some quick lines, all that. So if you can go through and you can turn some scraps into a card, if nothing else, it'll make you feel really good that you use some of your scraps, and it might teach you what kind of scraps that you actually want to hold on to going forward. I hope this list has led you to an actionable tip that you're going to do today. These are all relatively quick, so you can transform your crafting experience. You can make it the relaxing, enjoyable experience that it is supposed to be. And if you found all of this helpful, I would love if you like and subscribe. I think I have a lot of videos that will help you to get the most out of your crafty supplies and time. And I will leave you another video.